Hi Eric, how are you?
I'm pretty good, thanks.
Awesome, you look well.
Good. Good, good.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Not at all.
What a wonderful, exciting opportunity for the UK to have the chance to come and see you on stage in September. How are you feeling about it?
I feel very excited. I overwork. I write these things months before and then rewrite them and rewrite them. And, I try and think of things to surprise people and talk about. And, it's nice. It's because it's writing and then also then performing. So I bring, a lot of surprising people come and appear on the show
Yeah.
in, virtually. One of them I was arguing with last night. We had a long, long talk, so I'm a bit tired today. Professor Brian Cox, we were talking about the possibilities of life in the universe and the odds again,
Hmm.
really, us getting to this stage because of it was very odd, So we have these long and involved conversations. We
Great.
we used to call it a two-bottle problem when I was a drinker, and then once we had a three-bottle problem, and we solved the entire universe. But the next day we were so hungover we couldn't remember what we'd done.
It's a whole new conversation the next day.
Yeah, exactly. So
Um,
anyway, that's what I try and do. I try and surprise people and, just give them a show that maybe they didn't quite expect with music.
yeah.
I've got a virtual band on screen, so whenever I play live, the band plays and they can change their costumes and everything. Oh, it's very good. It's a new invention in show business.
Wow.
Wow. And I tell you what, they're not just the virtual band, they play for the Monkeys. Well, it's the final remaining monkey, Mickey Dolenz.
Oh, amazing.
And he pops up too. Yeah, yeah. No, so it's kind of I try and make a show that is like really, it's all over the place. But you start talking to them and you make them laugh. Then you play a song. Then
Yeah.
and then you maybe do an anecdote or conversation about some people whom I've met along the way who were kind of extraordinary people and
Yeah.
funny and very influential. And so it's a bit of a. I think we like a sort of through line story. I think we learn through narrative.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's a bit like, let me tell you a story in a very bizarre way. Okay, not necessarily in any order you'd expect.
That's the joy though, is the surprise element. But I love how I've heard you say so many times over the years about how being in front of an audience is just such a kind of wonderful gift because you kind of feed off that energy from them and kind of the response to how they're responding in a way. It's a kind of two-way thing.
No, totally. I mean, when you first did, I did it first in New Zealand, and the audience tell you what's funny and what they want to hear. That's the interesting thing because up to then it's just a theory. And then if you say something and they laugh, you go, "Oh, that theorem worked." And then then you learn from them, and then you adjust it. I always adjust it a little bit,
Mm.
and because that was in New Zealand, that now I've got one for England because of course it's a long time since I was in the UK, and I was born in the UK, and
Hmm.
I'm playing many of the places I lived in, like Manchester and Liverpool.
Yeah.
And Birmingham, for God's sake. I was in Studley for about 15 years. So it's kind of nice to go back.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, I'm sure I will get as much from it as the audience do because it's just coming back and looking at this country that, I grew up in. We were at war when I was born.
Wow.
I know. So people go, "Oh, it's really terrible today." I said, "Not as bad as being bombed by Hitler. Not quite yet."
Yeah. I know. I was going to say hold your breath, but let's not. I Um, Music has been something that's been such an important part of your creative journey, in terms of you're such a prolific songwriter. Music's been part of so many of the projects that you've kind of worked on. And I wanted to ask kind of where that came from, where that songwriting and where that inner melody in you sort of if it's always been there, and something you always strive to be part of your career.
I think it came from, well, I was in the choir at school, but that was kind of a bit painful. But still, it was more interesting than just being at church. But sort of about 13 or 4, Elvis came into our lives. and that changed our lives completely.
Mm.
Somebody was on. We loved Elvis. I mean, he just was amazing. It was fantastic. So I then became part of a skiffle group. I played harmonica first of all in a little skiffle group. You know, we'd play jump down, turn around, pick a bale of cotton. We play all those. We played a lot of spirituals and
Hmm.
protest songs because we were in a boarding school, and we kind of identified with that, which is very odd, really peculiar, because we were quite a long way from the American South. But I love those songs, and
Hmm.
so then I got a guitar when Elvis came along, and I began to learn that, very painfully. And you get the strings, a 10 quid guitar, and so that became part of my life. And then I guess at Cambridge, we played a lot more songs. I would always get a pianist to play because they're really good, if you write a song with a pianist. But bit by bit, I got confidence. And I think we did a TV show called Do Not Adjust Your Set, which was a kids show.
Hmm.
And we had the Bonzo Dog Doodah Band were on every week.
Yeah.
They were so weird. And I think that influenced us a lot. It was only Michael Palin, Terry Jones, and me wrote it. But David Jason was in the show, and I wrote a song for him called Captain Fantastic, which I recorded and sang with the Bonzos. And so bit by bit, you gain confidence.
Hmm.
So by the time it got to Python, I think Mike and Terry were the first to bust the song thing with the lumberjack song.
Yeah.
But then it sort of, I play the guitar every day. I
Oh,
mean, every day
amazing.
for at least an hour. I love it. It's the one, it's the one thing I love. I just sit there playing, and I've played it 62 years or more now. I don't know. So I love doing that, and I love doing. We always have ding dongs. We have people come in and sing and play,
Yeah.
and
Little jam sessions. I love it.
sessions. And even last night, I played. We played the Galaxy song with the professor, and his son George plays guitar brilliantly, and so he always complains about the figures, so we always have fun with it. But we don't play things can only get better because that's wrong. Clearly didn't survive. But so it's kind of fun. I mean, I know a lot of funny people, and I know a lot of musicians, and everybody likes to have dinner and then play. It's good
Yeah.
fun.
Do you think that because it's so interesting when you think about those, like, particularly like the songs around Python and how much, that marriage of comedy and music and how through those songs you are able to I don't know what the question is about exploring comedy in a different way or what the songs allowed you to do with those characters in those settings, in those scenes, whether it's in the film or it's in the show. They were able to add to it, do something different. It's yeah.
Yes, I think they do. I think that you come at it a different way when you're writing a lyric. And because it has a pattern to it, it's leading up to a gag. Usually, the last line is going to be funny.
Mm.
So that pattern is there, and the pattern is there, pattern is there, tag. So it has a shape to it. Um, I love writing songs. I mean, I've just get great delight from writing them. I can't help it. My little iPhone is filled with half-filled songs because I write the song. I think, oh, that's a nice tune. I got a
Yeah.
hook for it, and then you've got to fit. Then the hard work is writing the lyrics. So I learned a lot more about that doing Broadway
Yeah.
with Spam.
Spam a lot,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah, so we did 17 drafts of the script, but how God knows how many songs we did. We did lots and lots and lots of songs, some of which were terrible, and they didn't get in, but
Mm.
it's just sort of like, well, what's going to fit, what's going to work, and that was a learning process, very much so.
That's so interesting because I think a lot of people would assume that the lyrics would come first in terms of, it's the kind of the gags there, the comedies there, and then the kind of music fits around it. But it's so interesting that it's almost the other way around.
It can be both ways because I
Yeah.
had a partner called John Dupre for 45 years or more. He wrote songs with me in music, and something like, there's a song called "You Won't Succeed on Broadway If You Don't Have Any Jews." Well, that was clearly a lyric. It was a patter song, and it came to
Yeah.
me. But something like there's a song, there's a moment when King Arthur sings, "I'm all alone," and he's standing next to Patsy, and I knew that would be funny because Patsy tells you when he goes, what, he can wait. He can prolong his time. I'm all alone. And then I wrote that joke, and then John Dupre wrote much nicer music, a much more beautiful melody for King Arthur to sing. So, you're fitting the gag, but you're making the music better. And he writes, beautiful melodies, and one adds enormously to. Sometimes I'll just have written a song, but it has got a fairly obvious tune, and he said,
Mm.
"No, that's not how that goes." I think the Galaxy song was like that. He said, "No, no, that's not how that song goes. This is how the song goes."
Yeah.
And that's lovely when you can collaborate with someone who does what you cannot do, and that I really like that. I've enjoyed that always.
Yeah, you almost kind of bring out the best in each other that way with collaboration like that, don't you? Absolutely.
Absolutely. You do what they can't do, and they do what you can't do.
Mm. It's the it's the range of what you've done musically, Eric, that's astonishing, in terms of, I think the easy thing to do is to think about the kind of Python stuff, but also, Spamalot obviously connected to that, but very much its own thing as well. But everything from, working with like the English National Opera to the theme tune for One Foot in the Grave, which is just iconic, it's like, and everything in between.
Well, the E&O was very bizarre. I loved Jonathan Miller, and I'd been in his Alice in Wonderland when I first came, down from college,
Yeah.
and I just loved him. He was an adorable man. And he asked me if I'd be in the Mikado. And I said, "Are you on the phone?" I said, "Well, what are you going to do with the Mikado?" He said, "Well, I'm going to get rid of all that Japanese nonsense for a start." And I thought, well, that I have to see, because it is actually set in Japan. But he did it as a Marx Brothers show, like the Duck Soup. And the great thing was that in the Mikado, there's a song called "I've Got a Little List." And you are traditionally allowed to add to the list. That's always been ever since Gilbert times,
Hmm.
that are allowed to write your own list. So every night, I would write my own list, and then the whole chorus would sit round, and the whole orchestra would sit up and say, "Now make us laugh," and I would. And I learned then that I really love musical comedy, that I could write jokes in a song format that would really work and make them laugh. And I think from then on, I wanted to write a musical. And I went to Mel Brooks and asked him if he'd like to do the producers with me, because Jonathan Miller had he had the old Vic. I
Yeah.
said, "You could be Bialystok and I could be Bloom." But he said, "No." He said, I'm enjoying directing films." It was in Hollywood.
Yeah.
So, you know, up to after that, then I think John Dupree and I kept looking for a subject, and we actually our first musical was on the radio. It was on Radio 4. And it was called Behind the Crease. It was about cricket. It was about the Botham scandal, which I happened to be present for. I
Hmm.
didn't know what to do, so I made a musical of it. And the great thing about musical on the radio is you don't have costumes, you don't have sets, you don't have dancing. It's just the voices and the songs and the words.
People's imagination.
Yeah, and it was a great way to start. Because we did it. The BBC let us do it, and it was fun.
Yeah. How then do you decide what, still kind of, so clearly just love what you do, and being having that connection with an audience, whether it be live or whether it just be creating. How do you decide what is next, in terms of, oh, I want to do this tour or I want to work on this? What's helping you form those decisions?
Well, usually I take the summer off, you see, and I've never got out of that college, have the few
Yeah.
months off, and you come back and you go, now what do I want to do? It's a new term. But I've always got something on the shelf for something that never quite worked. I don't think there's bad work. I think there's only unfinished work. And if there was something there, so I will rewrite and rewrite. I mean, I've perversely been rewriting Death the Musical for the last 16 years. And if you ever want to write something that nobody wants to buy, you call it Death the Musical. However, it does have some great moments and some very lovely songs, and it's a subject which is very interesting to us. It's just not Broadway.
I disagree. I'd buy a ticket.
Well, I think you might. I think people might, because I think it's an important subject, and it is not. There's nothing that you can't examine through comedy, and it's not like you're
Absolutely.
laughing at death. Everybody has to sort of face it. So that's the joke, really. we all have to go through that. So, the more you can be prepared, the better.
Yeah, I mean, I like, personal experience of losing people, those moments of laughter are the things that get you through. Whether it's kind of someone is dying or someone has just died, those telling stories about them, memories that make you laugh are the things that help you through it.
100%. And I think that's why, I'm so proud of Brightside being the funeral song. Always look on the
Yeah.
bright side of life, being the number one funeral song in the UK for the last 25 years. It's amazing to me. And I think that's partly to do with the fact that religion has declined because they want you to be mournful and sad and miserable. You know,
Yeah.
but actually, you need to laugh because you need to remember the person alive.
Hmm.
What a funny person they might have been, or what they said, and the times you did this. I think that's very important
Mm.
because it's healthier and it expresses your grief in a nicer way. And tears and laughter are very close together. The emotions are very close. So I had to do it for Graham Chapman's funeral. That was the first time I ever did it, and that
Mm.
was actually very hard to
I
sing it
bet.
because you're singing for a particular person. But eventually I learned that what I sort of did, and I didn't mean to, but subconsciously, whenever somebody died, I wrote a song for them. And so I wrote one for when Graham was dying called Life Will Get You in the End.
Yeah.
So with one final thing to try is bend and kiss your ass goodbye, because life will get you in the end.
And you did it for Robin and George as well, didn't you,
I
as well?
did one for Robin, and I wasn't. Well, I was asked to do his memorial, and I didn't think I could hold it together. So
Yeah.
I wrote a little song, and I had my daughter with me, and she held me, and we did it on stage in San Francisco, and I do it in the show actually because it's a sweet little song,
Mm.
and it reminds you these people were alive and funny. I use like, pictures of us on holiday and things to go with that to remember the person alive.
Yeah.
And then, and the George one I wrote quite recently, it was called I Miss You, George. And that's an emotion that you can actually write an emotion in a song.
Yeah.
It expresses it very well.
And he was so important to obviously, kind of supporting Python and it's to the point where it got made and we were able to enjoy that as well. I mean, instrumental in that really, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's I talk about all that. I talk
Mm.
about when he's alive and when we met and how that came to be because it was an extraordinary thing for anybody to do is to mortgage his house and his business and raise $4.5 million and put it all on a Python film about religion. I mean, it is the silliest thing to do. I was kept thinking, what did Liv say at the end of the day? Come home and say, I've just mortgaged the entire house and business and put it on a Python film. I mean, really? I mean it was an extraordinary act.
Mm.
I mean, I really do. I still think it's extraordinary. I think even more now today because I think nobody would have made it. We wouldn't have got them. We tried to get the money.
Mm.
EMI bought it. Then Lou Grade read it.
Yeah.
But he said, no, no, we're not having anything to do with this. And, we had to sue him because we'd already started building the sets.
Yeah.
But so we won the money, but obviously, but then we went to Hollywood and we went to New York, and it was like trying to sell Springtime for Hitler. I mean, nobody wanted it at all. They wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. So I think it wouldn't have been made, but for George.
Do you know what's wonderful? I've got two boys, 17 and 12, and my 17-year-old quotes Python, kind of that has this ability that it's kind of proudly passed on through generations, going, when you it's kind of like, oh, you've got to watch Python, you've got to, and it's a real kind of it's a lovely thing to pass down, and it must be lovely for you to see that this thing that you were part of, it still connects, it still makes people laugh, it still makes people think. Um,
I love
must
it.
be like,
Sometimes you get three generations. And I've noticed recently that a lot of ladies have told me that their dads introduced them to it. And I love that. There's something between, dads and their daughters. I think that's really nice. And I guess a lot of dads have been passing away because it's that sort of period of time
yeah,
now. And so, but they've all come to me and said, yeah, my dad, you know, even at Cambridge University, there was two or three of the dons came up and said, my dad introduced me to this. And I thought,
Hmm.
it used to be dads to boys.
Yeah.
But I think that's no longer true. I think it's, I love the fact it's dads to girls because I'm a father of a girl too. So it's very sweet. And we always shared bad jokes with Lily. We made her learn bad jokes.
Yeah,
So
it's but lovely that it still has a life. It's still breathing, it's still living through people.
I think it's quite extraordinary, to be honest. I mean, 50 years of the Holy Grail. I mean, I think that's fairly extraordinary.
Yeah.
Um, I don't quite know why, except I think it appeals to kids because people are riding imaginary horses. So very early on, 10-year-olds love that because they're behaving just like kids.
Yeah. Got the
No,
coconuts, you
and
know.
they're very serious about it. So that anyway, thanks to that, it made it possible to go on Broadway because you could have had horses. So
Yeah, exactly. Um, I wanted to ask about filming, and being in so many productions over the years as well. And where was I? I was traveling in Germany and doing that thing where you flick through the TV to try and find something to watch late at night. And do you know what was on? Nuns on the Run.
wow.
I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen this. And it was just like, okay, stop, I've got to. And it was just, oh, it was so great. I was like properly belly laughing. It's like I hadn't watched it, felt like in a lifetime. But you've been in so many, kind of films and productions over the years. And I wanted to talk to you about being on set and being on location. And if there are memories of you of a place, whether it, because sets are so important. And when with Python and being in those kind of real environments sort of thing, so to speak, and how important that is and memories that you have of maybe a couple of specific locations of filming and what was important and what you remember about them.
I don't really like filming because it's so boring. You sit around for hours,
Yeah.
dressed up and with makeup on. You can't even write. So I like to get up and write. So, but I mean, it was more fun when we were with Python because we were making our own stuff. So,
Mhm.
Dune Castle was played everywhere. We used every single angle of it. Tunisia was fun because, for once, thanks to George, we had enough money to go and make the film. Um, I mean, Nuns on the Run was the last handmade film, by the way. It was a handmade film, and working with Robbie was just a delight. Best dressed as nuns. He'd sit there with his legs wide open, having a fag, and they'd say, "Good morning, sister," and everything. So who could possibly mistake him for a real sister? But still, so it was those. I love. There are many fun moments you can have on location,
Yeah.
but I found that making other films, say like a Casper or
Mm.
are long and they're special effects films, so you spend hours waiting, and I'm an impatient person, and what can you do you're stuck in a trailer. I mean, it's like being retired. But so I rarely do them, and I haven't done any for a long time. I much prefer to do a live show,
Hmm.
live people, and scare yourself a little bit. I try and do it every year at least once.
Yeah.
Don't lose the knack
Yeah.
of being able to get out there and look like you know what you're doing. I think it's important to keep that going. But as for films, I don't remember when I last made a film. I think I was at Ella Enchanted, and I was stuck in Ireland, and I was sober. That was a big mistake.
Yeah. How'd you manage that?
Yeah,
Ireland and sober.
it was like really in Dublin and sober.
Wow.
Oh God, that was a waste of time. But so I mean, after that, I think we created musicals. I mean, one of the loveliest things we did was we did an oratorio version of The Life of Brian.
Hmm.
It's called Not the Messiah. He's a
Hmm.
very naughty boy. And I just wrote the lyric. I just wrote, the whole thing, and I gave it to John Dupre. He went off for 3 months. He went to Dublin actually, because that's where Handel had written, and he went for inspiration. And he came up with this most extraordinary soundtrack. and we did it live at the Albert Hall with the BBC Symphony Orchestra, about a 200-piece choir. I mean, we had bagpipes. The whole audience had candles singing "You Are the One." It was a fabulous evening, and I really love that. It's one of the most exciting things we have ever done because I had real singers. You
Yeah.
know, they were real, sopranos and the famous people who could do that opera world, and I was like baritone-ish, I call myself. But I think for the Albert Hall, we actually had Michael Palin came on and played the narrator. And he said, is it in drag? And I said, no, no, no. He said, well, it isn't in drag. And I said, it could be if you want to, Mike. And he said, yes. And so he got on Thatcher hairstyle and a dress. And next thing you know, he's dressing up. And I thought, oh, he's missing all this. You might
Yeah.
have to do this on your travels. And he's really funny in it. Yeah.
Yeah. He
Anyway,
used to be my neighbor, Michael.
he did.
We used to live in Gospel Oak, just up the road
Lovely.
from him. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. With
he
Helen, lovely Helen.
he bought half of Up the Gospel Oak.
Yeah, exactly. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, no, she was lovely, Helen. I mean,
Wonderful
she
lady.
was a wonderful lady.
Yeah.
And it was sad that well, it was a choice actually because she was in so much pain eventually.
Yeah.
There's no point to life if it's just pain.
Yeah.
And I thought they took a brave decision. And he said, the last few times, weeks with her was lovely because they laughed and it was
Yeah.
very sweet as you would do, remembering all those years. It was more than 50 odd years. I think he met her when he was 16.
Wow.
I know.
I always was slightly concerned because he always had when I first moved in, had such a bad impression of me because every time I'd walk past his house, he was putting the bins out and I was walking past with a carry out. He'd hear the bottles clinking and he's like, oh God, we've got an alcoholic neighbour moving in. Totally stereotypical Scottish. It was like, oh God. But they were
Well,
lovely.
he liked a joke. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
but he liked a drink too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was great for
He
the
liked a
we had a
glass of, he
street
liked his
party every
wine.
year. And he was
Yeah,
always like heart and soul of that street party. He was
yeah,
brilliant.
yeah, yeah.
Totally. Listen, I'm so excited to come along and see the show at the Royal Albert Hall, and I'm coming with my 17-year-old as well. We're so
Excellent.
excited. So, thank you so much for your time today. And yeah, your enthusiasm that you still have for what you do is infectious, Eric, and so entertaining as well. So, yeah, thank you for your time and enjoy the tour.
Absolutely. I will. Thank you very much. Nice talking
Thanks
to
a
you.
lot. You too. Take care. Bye bye.